There's nothing like home, right? Well, depends. It depends on who you share your accommodations with. Sometimes we complain about housemates that don't wash their dishes or that leave a mess in the communal space. My case was a bit different. I lived with a person that was a little more extreme on the lazy end. His name was James. At the time, he was 32 years old, a fatty, bold guy that used to smell of pepperoni pizza. He's been eating pepperoni pizza for months, the cheap frozen quality in packs of 3. Sometimes he would eat the 3 pizzas one after the other and never brush his teeth. In fact, you could smell his breath from across the living room. He was a brilliant jazz pianist, and it was really cool jamming with him because I play guitar. But unfortunately, playing music with him was really the only fun part about living with him. The rest of the time, his head was just up in the clouds. There was a time where, here in England, magic mushrooms were legal, and in places like Camden Town in London, you would always be able to buy them pretty much anywhere. Even if they say that magic mushrooms are safe, any drug abuse leads to some sort of dementia at the end. Our house was a bit away from transports and shops, so that most of the people who rented a room didn't stay for long, just for the time being until they found something better. Also, the house was a bit old and smelly. However, that wasn't the only problem. The problem was James. He was annoying. He would constantly ask to borrow money from the tenants and leave a mess everywhere around the house. I learned how to deal with him, though. Like, if he'd ask for money, I'd say that I was going out to the shops and that I'd pop by the cash machine and give him something when I got back. Then I'd come back and pretend that I'd forgotten, or find similar excuses, anything to avoid blatantly saying no. The rent was really cheap, and I would cycle everywhere I need to go, so the location of the house wasn't a problem for me. Things started to take a wrong turn when a couple of girls moved into the house. He would walk around naked, just covered with a towel, and accidentally drop it whenever he would meet them. And he would just smile. The first time it happened, I laughed it off. Seeing the face of the girl totally embarrassed in front of this round, pink, bold, sweaty, hairless guy was too funny not to laugh at. But by the third time it happened, I started to feel very creeped out. It had happened a few times when I was in the kitchen talking to one of my girl housemates. He would just walk in, drop his towel, smile, try to make conversation, but we would just leave the room feeling uncomfortable. I personally only saw it happening maybe 3 or 4 times, but I'm pretty sure it happened lots more than that. And that's not all of it. When the girls would literally run away when they saw him, he would chase them up the stairs and confess his love for them, which of course only creeped these poor girls out more. I can't imagine how disgusting it must have been for these girls to be tormented in this way. I'm not sure exactly when I reckoned it was time to move out for me too, but in one occasion while talking to my next door neighbor, a very nice elderly lady, she told me she saw him once dancing in the garden, or doing some sort of ritual. He was completely naked, all covered in engine oil, wearing a pair of pants on his head and singing some made-up Arabic song. I tried to reassure her, saying maybe he was doing a video, as he used to play a lot with an old Super 8 camera. But of course I knew he wasn't doing any video. He was probably just out there trying to scare the neighbors in all his weird glory. That was something I couldn't excuse or even laugh about. An alarm bell started ringing in my head. He wasn't just a pervert. He was fucking crazy. He had a cat, and the cat used to bring little bunnies inside the house. Of course, the bunnies would have been badly hurt. That's what cats do. They don't kill or eat them. They just play with the little creatures. I knew a vet that used to rescue rabbits for free, and he had a garden full of them. But James seemed to love finishing the poor bunnies off by snapping their necks and dumping them in a field near the house, a field where there was a playground for children. I imagine some kids would encounter some of these dead bunnies while walking in the park, and I can't imagine the trauma that would leave behind. He would also do stupid things like asking to borrow a lighter, light up his rolling cigarette, and pocketing the lighter right in front of the people he just borrowed the lighter from. He was a complete embarrassment to be around and a nightmare to live with. There are so many stories that I could tell, and all of them happened within the course of 10 months. The next more outrageous than the one before, to the point of I've lost track of how they happened in chronological order. But I do recall one instance. I'd just come back from a festival in Glastonbury, came into my room at about 3 a.m. to find him sleeping naked in my bed. I remember shouting at him and demanding that he leave, but he wouldn't. I was so furious and worried that I might actually injure this man that I called the police. But you'll never believe what they told me. Their response was, "You're both adults. You should be able to deal with it peacefully." So fuck the police. I started wrecking his room to get him out of mine, and it worked. Seriously, what would you have done? And cooking my own meal was also always something to be careful of. I had to stay present in the kitchen at all times, or he would just spoon the food straight from the pot into his mouth when I wasn't there. Taking a bath after he did was also as disgusting as using the toilet after he used it. You don't want me to be descriptive. You know very well what it's like when a bath is filled with pubic hair and brown spots of God knows what. And you know how disgusting it is to flush someone else's poop. I now finally live on my own, and I have absolutely no intention of sharing my flat with anybody. I would love to be able to just forget about this terrible experience, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't haunt me on a daily basis. But I will also say that I have never been so grateful to be alone.